Did you know that the richest woman in Canada quietly commands a fortune bigger than the GDP of some small countries? That's the kind of mad wealth we're talking as we take a look at 10 richest women in Canada. Trust us, number 1 will surely blow your mind. Number 10. Sarah Samuel. Every billionaire list needs a ghost. The kind of person so wealthy that you wonder how they manage to stay invisible. Well, that's exactly who Sarah Samuel is, the billionaire you've probably never heard of, despite being worth over $1 billion. Her wealth is old money done the modern way. Family fortune, layered with carefully diversified investments. But while some billionaires love plastering their names across stadiums or art galleries, Sarah has perfected the art of staying grounded. Now, let's talk some luxury. Sarah owns a sprawling estate in Toronto and another $15 million estate perched in West Vancouver, with floor-to-ceiling windows staring down at the Pacific like it's her private infinity screen. Inside, you won't just find a pool. You'll find an indoor pool, tiled like an art installation, glowing under moody lights. Just a few steps away is a private cinema theater with leather recliners that could make IMAX jealous, and an art gallery wing where million-dollar canvases hang casually, like posters in a teenager's room. Oh, and when she's in Toronto? Well, she's not just downtown, she's above it, literally, floating over the skyline in a $7 million penthouse where the glass walls blur into the clouds. But you won't find her Instagramming the views. She's just there quietly, always part of the scene without being the scene. And here's another catch. Her social life is what we can call a billionaire's paradox. She'll show up at elite charity galas in Hermes or Chanel, glide through the evening, and vanish again into privacy. Those who know her describe her as elegance embodied, always polished, never overexposed. In fact, her biggest flex might just be how little she seems to care about public image at all. As they say, those who are really rich will never boast about their wealth, and Sarah is the epitome of this saying. When it comes to travel, Sarah boards her $56 million Bombardier Global 6,500 jet like it's an Uber, sipping Dom Perignon at 45,000 feet while mapping out her next getaway. Touching down, she swaps seamlessly between her Range Rover Autobiography for stately city cruising and her Porsche Taycan for whisper-quiet, eco-friendly speed thrills. And when water calls, she's got a 180-foot Heeson super yacht, a floating palace with a helipad, and a sun deck that makes Monaco look modest. All in all, it's the old-world strategy of wealth preservation. Play it safe, stay out of drama, let the portfolio compound. If you've ever wondered whether billionaires really can live without the spotlight, Sarah Samuel is proof they can, and quite comfortably at that. But if Sarah is the ghost billionaire, then the woman at number 9 is her polar opposite, eccentric, glamorous, and the kind of billionaire who turns the art world into her personal stage. Number 9. Louise Blouin. Imagine an art world Bond villain, except instead of plotting world domination, she's buying up media empires and throwing galas on yachts. That's Louise Blouin, Canada's undisputed art queen, with a net worth of about $1.3 billion. Blouin lives in permanent jet-set mode. Paris penthouse? Check London flat? Of course. A place in Geneva and another in New York? Why not? Throw in Mediterranean summers on a yacht, and you've got a billionaire whose address book reads like a geography exam. She made both her name and her fortune in media and the global art trade, turning her foundation into a magnet for the rich and famous. At Sotheby's or Christie's, she's a regular sight, glamorous in couture, outbidding rivals for pieces that most people would only ever see behind velvet ropes at a museum. But beneath the glitz, Blouin carries a reputation for being, well, complicated. Whispers of financial spats, boardroom feuds, and high society rivalries have followed her like perfume. For every glittering gala, there's a headline speculating on her business moves or questioning her motives. It only adds to the aura, the glamorous, untouchable billionaire who lives unapologetically in full color. And yet, that's part of the allure. In a Canadian billionaire scene often painted as polite and buttoned up, Blouin is the outlier who plays by her own rules. Some see her as a visionary, while others as a cautionary tale. But nobody can deny she's made the art world her kingdom. Now, if you're thinking billionaire life always means yachts and couture, the next woman will flip that assumption on its head. Here's how. Number 8. Deborah Rosati. Deborah Rosati is proof that you don't need a shipping empire or a global brand to hit billionaire status. Sometimes, the boardroom itself is the empire. With a net worth hovering around $1.2 billion, she's carved out her fortune not by chasing headlines, but by shaping them from behind the table. Rosati is a corporate governance powerhouse. She founded Women Get On Board Incorporated, a network that pushes women into leadership roles in Canada's biggest companies. That's not just altruism, it's also influence. Her career spans decades in tech and finance, where she's held board positions, guided mergers, and multiplied her wealth through smart, steady investments. What makes her story stand out is the contrast. While many billionaires flaunt private jets or exotic villas, Rosati's version of luxury looks more like keynote stages at international conferences, mentoring young executives, and advising companies on how to avoid their next crisis. Her wardrobe reflects it too. Sharp power suits instead of sequined gowns, polished presence instead of paparazzi bait. Philanthropy runs through her narrative, but so does pragmatism. She knows influence pays, and she's built a model where leadership itself becomes currency. The result? Wealth, respect, and a reputation for shifting Canada's corporate culture in ways that will last beyond her lifetime. Let alone being rich, Rosati is reshaping how wealth itself works in Canada. Because when she walks into a boardroom, she doesn't just take a seat at the table. She makes sure there's more room for women to follow. Now, if you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on other interesting videos like this. In the meantime, let's move on to number 7, where a business prodigy awaits us. 7. Karen Eskilty. Every billionaire list has at least one enigma, and in Canada that role is played to perfection by Karen Eskilty. She's sitting on a fortune of about $1.4 billion, yet if you tried to Google her, you'd find less detail than a small-town accountant's LinkedIn page. Eskilty's wealth stems from the world of finance, investments, corporate board seats, and diversified holdings that quietly compound into a fortune most of us can't even imagine. She owns a private estate in Toronto and retreats to British Columbia for winters on the slopes. But you'd never catch her flaunting it on magazine covers or social media. In fact, most Canadians couldn't pick her out of a lineup. Her fashion and social life mirror her business strategy. Understated, almost invisible. Think elegant silhouettes, no flashy labels, and an aura of someone who doesn't need validation because the bank account already speaks volumes. She travels, yes, Whistler for skiing, European resorts in the summer, but always off the radar, always low profile. And that's exactly what makes her fascinating. Eskilty is the type of billionaire who shapes companies, markets, maybe even national policies, but without ever becoming a household name. She's the invisible architect, the kind of figure that makes you wonder, how many other women are steering massive financial engines in Canada without ever stepping into the limelight? But if Eskilty is the shadow player, the woman at number 6 couldn't be more different. She's not just public. She's a sitting senator, blending political clout with billionaire influence. Number 6. Julia Omidvar. When you think billionaire, politics isn't usually the first thing that comes to mind. But Julia Omidvar proves that civic influence and immense wealth can go hand in hand. With an estimated net worth around $1.9 billion, Omidvar's fortune isn't tied to oil wells or retail chains. It's tied to leadership, policy, and philanthropy. Born in Iran and now deeply entrenched in Canada's political and academic scene, Omidvar carved her name as an advocate for immigrant integration, education, and women's empowerment. Today, she's a Canadian senator, and her career looks less like a billionaire's resume and more like a mission statement. And yet, the assets she commands through foundations, organizations, and her expansive influence have placed her firmly in the billionaire class. She lives in Toronto, close to the networks of power that keep her world turning. And while she's not flashy, she's visible. Dignified fashion, polished presence, always representing the stateswoman archetype. Instead of yacht parties, her travels take her to humanitarian conferences, international diplomacy missions, and global NGO gatherings. What makes Omidvar so compelling is that her wealth feels almost secondary to her purpose. She's not just another billionaire collecting assets. She's using hers to steer social policies and empower communities that mainstream politics often overlooks. She embodies the rare hybrid, billionaire capital and political capital rolled into one. And while her story shows that wealth can be wielded for mission-driven work, the woman at number 5 brings us right back to the old-school power game of Canadian finance, a banker who quietly turned Bay Street paychecks into a $2 billion empire. Number 5. Barbara Stymiest. If Bay Street had royalty, Barbara Stymiest would have her crown polished and ready. With a net worth of around $2 billion, Stymiest is the quintessential finance powerhouse who made it big the traditional way. Decades of climbing the ladder, smart investments, and eventually boardroom dominance. She first made headlines as the former COO of the Royal Bank of Canada, one of the largest banks in the country. From there, she built her influence across corporate Canada by sitting on the boards of some of the nation's biggest companies, turning her executive compensation and stock holdings into a fortune that rivals any tech mogul. Her lifestyle reflects the Bay Street archetype. She resides in a Forest Hill mansion, Toronto's old money enclave, and splits her leisure time between summers in Muskoka and winters in Palm Beach. Think private jets, yachts, and golf clubs, but without the loud self-promotion. If anything, she epitomizes the banker's approach to wealth. Enjoy it, but don't broadcast it. Her fashion sense is equally conservative. Tailored suits, luxury but understated, the kind of wardrobe that signals gravitas without screaming for attention. Among peers, she's respected as a no-nonsense operator, someone who let her results do the talking. What makes her stand out is just how quietly she built all this. No scandals, no eccentric headlines, just a relentless career on Bay Street that quietly compounded into billions. In a world where many billionaires feel larger than life, Stymiest proves that sometimes the sharpest power is the quietest one. And speaking of quiet power, wait until you see what happens when old-world Canadian wealth collides with modern entrepreneurial flair at number 4. Number 4. Heather Reisman. If Canada had a billionaire who could double as its Minister of Culture, it would probably be Heather Reisman. With an estimated net worth of about $2.1 billion, she isn't just wealthy. She's one of the rare billionaires who built her fortune while reshaping how Canadians buy, read, and even think about books. Reisman is the founder and CEO of Indigo Books and Music, which grew from a single concept store into a nationwide chain that's become a cultural staple. Walk into any Indigo today, and you'll notice it's not just about books. It's a lifestyle empire, curated home decor, wellness products, toys, and of course, towering shelves of bestsellers carefully selected under Reisman's watchful eye. For millions of Canadians, Indigo is more than a store. It's a weekend ritual. She pairs that entrepreneurial grit with serious cultural influence. Married to billionaire investor Jerry Schwartz, her personal empire stretches beyond Indigo into philanthropy and global causes. Together, the couple reside in a lavish Toronto mansion, retreat to estates in California, and keep a cottage country property that could be mistaken for a boutique resort. Reisman's style is polished but never stiff. Tailored outfits, often accented with bold jewelry, making her a recognizable presence at literary festivals, philanthropic galas, and cultural summits. She has poured millions into education and literacy programs, championing projects that give children access to books in communities where libraries are scarce. What sets her apart is that she's not just a businesswoman, but a cultural icon. She has her critics. Some claim Indigo has edged out indie bookstores. But few deny her role in modernizing Canada's reading culture. In a sense, she monetized not just books, but the idea of bookish living. And while Reisman transformed reading into big business, the woman at number 3 built her fortune around something older, deeper, and arguably more transformative: the resurgence of Indigenous economies. Number 3. Carol Ann Hilton. Now, we step into a story that feels less like a billionaire bio and more like a cultural shift in motion. Carol Ann Hilton, with an estimated net worth of $2.2 billion, is not your typical tycoon. She's the founder of the Indigenomics Institute, and her wealth is tied not just to business ventures, but to a wider movement of economic empowerment for indigenous communities. Hilton, a member of the New Cha Nulth Nation from British Columbia, has become a global voice for the idea that indigenous economies aren't alternative, they're central to Canada's future. Her institute promotes indigenous inclusion in billion-dollar industries like energy, natural resources, finance, and infrastructure. By championing indigenous-led businesses and investments, Hilton has positioned herself at the crossroads of wealth and reconciliation. Her lifestyle reflects this duality of purpose and prosperity. She's based in British Columbia, but travels constantly, whether it's to speak at international conferences, advise governments, or collaborate on community-driven economic projects. In public appearances, she often wears indigenous couture, vibrant textiles, jewelry with deep cultural symbolism, turning her wardrobe into a statement as powerful as her speeches. But don't mistake her for being all talk and no numbers. Through ventures connected to natural resource management, real estate development, and community-based capital funds, Hilton has accumulated serious wealth. Add to that her growing influence on boards and global organizations, and her billionaire status feels almost inevitable. What makes Hilton fascinating is that her fortune isn't purely personal, it's also representative. She symbolizes the rise of indigenous capital in Canada and the power of economies rooted in tradition but scaled to modern markets. Her story broadens the definition of what Canadian billionaires look like. And yet, while Hilton channels wealth into community transformation, the next name on our list comes from the opposite end of the spectrum: old money dynasties and global luxury, embodied by a woman who lives more like European royalty than a Canadian heiress. Number 2. Taylor Thompson. Step into the world of Taylor Thompson, and you might think you've wandered into a Gatsby sequel. With a net worth of around $2.4 billion, she represents one of Canada's most famous dynasties, the Thompson family, whose media empire has made them the country's wealthiest clan. Taylor herself is one of the more elusive heirs. She's known for her glamorous but mysterious lifestyle, splitting her time between a Malibu villa, Toronto estates, and luxury properties scattered across Europe. Picture summers spent on Mediterranean yachts, winters in ski resorts, and evenings in art-filled villas that double as private galleries. She's an avid collector, pouring her fortune into fine art, rare antiques, and vintage wines. While some heiresses flaunt their purchases, Taylor keeps things quiet, with her treasures surfacing only in whispers at high-end auctions and society galas. Her fashion sense mirrors her life, refined, elegant, and distinctly old money, but with modern touches that show she's not stuck in the past. She isn't constantly in the press, which only adds to her mystique. When she does appear, it's often at exclusive galas or charity events where the guest lists are guarded like state secrets. She travels in style, often via Gulfstream jets, and her vacations are less five-star hotel and more entire villa compound rented out for privacy. What makes Taylor unique is that she embodies the paradox of modern dynasties, a fortune built generations ago, but enjoyed with modern sophistication. She's not the face of the family empire, but she benefits from its reach while carving her own path in art and culture. But as dazzling as Taylor's lifestyle might be, the top spot on our list belongs to a woman whose fortune towers over the rest, and who wields her wealth in a way that's as quiet as it is absolute. Number 1. Sherry Bridson. Coming up at number 1, we land on a name that's not just at the top of this list, but at the summit of Canadian wealth itself: Sherry Bridson, with an estimated net worth of $7.3 billion. That makes her the richest woman in Canada. And yet, unless you're deeply tuned into financial circles, you've probably never seen her face in a headline. Sherry is the largest individual shareholder of the Thompson family fortune, the dynasty that dominates Canadian media and investment. Unlike other heirs who embrace the spotlight, she has perfected the art of living large while staying low profile. Her residences are the stuff of legend: a lavish mansion in Toronto, a sprawling Muskoka estate for lake country summers, and even whispers of private island retreats for when she truly wants to disappear. Her lifestyle is steeped in luxury, but without the Instagram parade. Sherry soars in a $60 million Bombardier Global 6000 jet, sleek and quiet, a flying boardroom when it needs to be. The seas are her second home, with a custom Caribbean yacht, all teak decks and infinity pools that shimmer into the ocean. And when she touches ground, she glides in a Bentley Flying Spur or switches gears for her hybrid Porsche Cayenne, marrying luxury with conscience. Talking about fashion sense, Sherry's choices in this regard are quite conservative and discreet, befitting someone who rarely appears in the media. Instead of flashy red carpets, she channels her wealth quietly into Canadian charities, giving millions away without seeking recognition. It's philanthropy by stealth, significant, impactful, but kept intentionally low-key. And what makes Sherry particularly compelling is that she wields dynasty-level power while remaining almost invisible. She doesn't court controversy, doesn't build flashy brands, doesn't give soundbite interviews, and yet she controls more wealth than any other woman in the country. It's dynasty influence distilled into one individual, proof that sometimes the most powerful people are the ones you hardly ever see. So there you have it, Canada's richest women, a mix of cultural icons, dynasty heirs, and quiet billionaires. Which one fascinated you the most? Let us know in the comments, and for more such peeks into the lives of the rich, take a look at the channel.